This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain. The people of this province are lining up to pay their respects to a legendary politician. Tonight, John Crosbie is lying in state in the legislature right inside the House of Assembly in St. John's, and that is an honour that has only been granted one other time in Newfoundland and Labrador's history, and that was for former Premier, the first Premier, Joey Smallwood. Here Now's Peter Cowan joins us live from the Confederation building tonight. Peter.
Anthony, I'm not sure how John Crosbie would appreciate the Smallwood comparison, but the lobby here at the Confederation building has really become a memorial. You can see many of those iconic photos from him with prime ministers to presidents, to some of the other great moments of his career. And over here, it's some of the more personable moments that he's had with his large extended family. There's been a slideshow here for people who want to come and pay their respect, but many people have also been going inside in order to see the urn. Let's show you what it looked like earlier this afternoon as people came in order to pay their respects. There's the honor guard posted there. The visitation for this afternoon is actually just wrapping up right now, but there's been a pretty steady stream throughout the afternoon. We've seen all sorts of very well-known people. We've had senators, we've had former cabinet ministers, both provincially and federally, but we also had the current federal cabinet minister. Seamus O'Regan was here to pay his respects, and here is how he's remembering John Crosbie.
The fact that he went and fought for and got 100% offshore royalties for us. The fact that he kept Hibernia together, a gift that keeps on giving, and cobbled it together when nobody else thought it could be done. And that is something that we continue to benefit from multiple times today. And I think in terms of tone, he was smart. He graduated top of his class from Queen's. He graduated top of his class from Dalhousie. Nobody from Dalhousie Law has ever beaten his average. He showed that he could shine on the national and international stage. And despite his quips and his humor, he did it with dignity and he did it with grace. He was a complicated man, but a man of good humor and a man who did right by us. And now is when we get to do right by him and pay him, I think, solemn tribute.
Of course, it wasn't just famous or well-known people who were showing up here. There were lots of just regular, everyday people who maybe volunteered on his campaign back in the 80s or never actually met him but saw him on TV and appreciated his contribution to the province. And here's what some of them were thinking about today.
I have been a long-time admirer of John. They just don't make men like that anymore, you know? And when one is missing, it's not like, okay, bring on the next one. No, there will not be another man like him. He did so much for this place, and he was everything that this place represents. His wit, his caustic sense of humor, his one-liners, and that's, you know, that's the kind of surface, but underneath, he worked his heart out for this place.
He was straight to the point, and that he cared for, you know, the people of our province. I think that you know, young people can take away from that we need to support people that have that vision and same drive to make change and make a difference.
To be able to make the type of mark that John Crosbie made right through his life, you know, right on out to Chancellor of the University, Lieutenant Governor, you know, start off with City Council and get brought in as a cabinet minister before he got elected by Joey, and then right on through the whole, he's printing the federal cabinet saying, like, the mark is phenomenal.
We're seeing here just the last few people signing the Book of Remembrance, an opportunity for people to share their memories directly with the family. But there is still another chance. Tomorrow afternoon from 2 to 6 p.m. the family will be here, and it's another opportunity for people to come and pay their respects, especially since it's expected to be a full house for the funeral on Thursday. And in fact, they're expecting that many people won't be able to get inside, so this is a chance for people who maybe want to share their memories and pay those respects to do it. Reporting live from Confederation Building, I'm Peter Cowan for Here and Now.
So as Peter mentioned there, you can still go to the visitation from 2 to 6 tomorrow. And don't forget, on Thursday, we'll have special live coverage on television, on YouTube and Facebook, and on CBC News Network, as Heather Hiscox will join me for special coverage of the funeral of John Crosbie. Newfoundland and Labrador is saying goodbye to John Crosbie. On Thursday, you can watch the funeral for John Crosbie on CBC TV, News Network, YouTube, and Facebook. The funeral service will also be broadcast live on CBC Radio. Special coverage with me, Anthony Germain, and CBC News Network host Heather Hiscox, as well as reporter Peter Cowan. That special coverage starts at 1:30 Newfoundland time, 2 o'clock in Labrador. The funeral for John Crosbie, Thursday, live on CBC.
As beautiful as it is outside today, the rain on Saturday night here on the Avalon, followed by that big drop in temperatures on Sunday, has made things extra slippery and super icy. The freeze, thaw, freeze is no stranger to anyone living on the Avalon, and that has to do with the jet stream. That's the winds in the upper atmosphere that act like a conveyor belt moving the weather systems around the world. Now, to the north of that jet is colder Arctic air, and south of that is milder air. So depending on where the system tracks, we either stay on the cold side and get snow, or tap into some of that milder air and get rain or drizzle. Often that low pressure system moves offshore, and that allows the temperatures to drop, and then that basically creates a giant skating rink across the city. My advice is put some spikes on your boots, some salt on the sidewalk, and get out and enjoy this sun while it lasts, because there's more snow on the way.
It's funny, she says snow and it just appears. Just ahead in her forecast, Ashley has details about the potentially nasty storm system moving in later in the week, so stay tuned for that. Well, let's head to the West Coast now, where police have laid charges in relation to the Corner Brook Minor Hockey Association. The group is facing off against some major debt and is calling on its membership to fundraise tens of thousands of dollars. Here now's Troy Turner has more.
These kids just want to play the game. They want to work on their skill and have fun with friends. They're far removed from the inner workings of the Minor Hockey Association. In a letter to parents, Corner Brook Minor Hockey says it owes the city $80,000 for ice time from last season. Last March, the association issued a public statement about financial irregularities, choosing then to strike a committee to look into the issue. The RNC also began investigating. While this issue of finances is the talk around Corner Brook Minor Hockey and the region, no one is talking. The CBC reached out to members of the Corner Brook Minor Hockey Association, but they would not do an interview. We contacted members of the committee looking into the finances. They too would not talk. Parents corresponded with us privately about the matter, but would not do an on-camera interview, some in fear of retribution against their child. Here's what we do know. Corner Brook City Council is providing an interest-free loan to the minor hockey group to help.
It was a middle ground. We didn't want to cripple the organization. Minor hockey is very important to Corner Brook. So this was a way, I guess, that we can ensure, I guess, we're dealing with our taxpayer dollars in a fair and responsible way, while at the same time affording the organization a way to pay back their debt.
In an email to CBC, VP Matt Rogers said their latest fundraiser is to pay back the city and help with regular operations. Rogers also said there's nothing out of the ordinary happening, and it's business as usual. One way the group is hoping to raise its outstanding $80,000 debt through 50-50 ticket draws. Troy Turner, CBC News, Corner Brook.
And we have an update from police tonight. Corner Brook RNC has charged a 46-year-old woman in relation to those financial irregularities. And that woman is a former employee with the Corner Brook Minor Hockey Association. She's facing a number of charges, including theft and fraud over $5,000, as well as false pretenses, unauthorized use of a credit card, and 2 counts of uttering a forged document.
A week of hell, really. We took a bunch of kids what was supposed to be a positive outlook on the tournament.
It was supposed to be a great experience for these young hockey players, but delayed luggage, delayed flights, it all led to turmoil and profound disappointment at a big hockey tournament in Halifax. The man accused of killing Chantel John will face a first-degree murder trial. A court has ordered Kurt Keeping to stand trial on first-degree murder, as well as several other serious charges. A preliminary inquiry wrapped up this morning in Grand Falls, Windsor, and much of what was discussed can't be revealed because of a publication ban. But Judge Robin Fowler concluded there is enough evidence to send the case to trial. Keeping is accused of killing his ex-girlfriend, Chantel John, last January. He is also charged with attempted murder and uttering threats. To politics now, the Premier is emphasizing his goal to reach a deal with the federal government to keep electricity rates down, and he wants the deal struck by the end of this month. Premier Ball met with the Canadian Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland in St. John's earlier today, and after the meeting, he said an arrangement to offset electricity rate increases caused by the Muskrat Falls project was at the top of the list of items that they discussed.
We're working towards the date of the end of January. The Prime Minister is there, the Deputy Prime Minister understands that, Minister Morneau understands that, and Minister O'Regan, who has been relentless in working and very persistent on this particular file for us as well. So we're all working towards the end of January. Understand the PUB report will be out at that time as well. So that's what we're working towards.
A woman in St. John's is going to extraordinary lengths to preserve the past. A historic business sign for Lewis, Furman and Company was discovered last year during some downtown renovations. Here Now brought you that story. And that sign is now at the rooms for a cleanup. Here Now's Meg Roberts has the details.
Oh my gosh, what a conservation nightmare.
Tucked in a lab in the basement of the rooms, Mickey Lee is carefully gluing down every single paint chip that's threatening to crumble off this 80-year-old Lewis, Furman and Company sign. It was found downtown last year during renovations at the Subway sandwich shop, and now it's Lee's job to clean it up. Her tools, a cotton swab, and a very careful hand.
Unfortunately, the blue background is awful. And the minute I touch it, the blue comes off. So I'm finding that a little bit challenging.
Once the cleaning is done, the sign, which has been cut into 7 pieces, will be reassembled. Lee will then touch up the paint in some of the damaged areas. It's a tedious task, but Lee says it's worth it.
While I'm working on this, I'm constantly thinking about the people who have worked on it as well, like the painters. Well, why did they do this? Why did they use this, what I called crappy blue paint? So it's the people and the stories behind it I really enjoy.
The sign belonged to the Furman family who escaped from Jewish ghettos in Nazi-occupied Poland. The couple met while living in a resistance camp and helped others escape. In 1947, the pair settled in St. John's and went on to start a clothing store. The room's curator says the Furman story is an important piece of the city's rich history.
This kind of brings that back, that was such an important part of Newfoundland and Labrador's history that should be again, kind of embraced and celebrated.
Depending on her workload, Lee is hoping to finish the project by spring. The sign will be hung up at the rooms. Meg Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, you might have heard that the Oscar nominations are out. Well, one of the movies up for a string of awards features an actor from this province.
It's not as simple as not being in love anymore.
Eventually, it'll be the two of you having to figure this out. Together.
Well, Marriage Story has some pretty big Hollywood names attached. You saw there Scarlett Johansson, Adam Driver and Ray Liotta, and Mark O'Brien from St. John's is also featured in this film, which has nabbed 6 Academy Award nominations. Those include Best Picture, Best Actor, and Best Actress. O'Brien moved to Hollywood, as you may recall, after his stint as Des on The Republic of Doyle, and he is steadily squeezing his way into the Hollywood movie market. Great to see his star continuing to rise.
Mr. Pinn has a violent history and violent past.
Am I going to be rolling on this? Yes. All right.
In local news, Philip Pinn is back in custody.
Okay, now hold on one second before we roll.
More jail time for Philip Pinn.
The whole point of this, right?
This would be a documentary, so this is about rehabilitation.
Do you think he can turn his life around?
I know he can. It's hard to rehabilitate people when they're around a bunch of criminals.
And second chances. And how do you pick yourself up and move forward?
All these people that judge my kid, they're all full of shit.
It was my fault, like it was on me.
Philip is not a monster.
I don't look down and I don't judge people for their mistakes and stuff, and I expect the same.
This weather update is brought to you by the NL 511 app. Know before you go. Check road conditions, highway cameras, and the Provincial Plow Tracker with the NL 511 app.
It was a gorgeous day today. I know we're going to talk about the storm later on Here and Now, but as far as today goes, it was cold, a little nip out there, but it was beautiful. Well, you were out there checking the slippery conditions and all that.
It was really cold.
I noticed the shades.
Because I was crying from the cold.
Right.
Yeah,
but the sun was nice.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know who doesn't love this weather. It's perfect for getting out and enjoying the snow that is on the ground across the province. But we can thank an area of high pressure for that. It's been pretty much sitting there for the last couple of days. Let's take a look at that on the system there. You can see the low. The high is tracked a little bit further south, and it's going to continue to do so as we head through at least the next 24 hours, and it's bringing that colder air with it. So we talked about that yesterday. That cold air now pretty much in place, and it looks like it'll be there through the day tomorrow as well. Here's where we were sitting this morning, minus 12 for St. John's, numerous areas seeing temperatures in the minus teens, minus 18 up through St. Anthony, minus 24 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and Lab City was sitting around minus 37 this morning. You factor in that wind chill, it's feeling pretty chilly. Here's where we're sitting right now, minus 9 for St. John's, minus 17 for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. And again, those wind chills feeling closer to the minus teens across the board. And temperatures nearing the minus, or feeling like the minus 30s for Labrador. Lab West anyway, still under that extreme cold warning. We're looking at wind chills overnight tonight around minus 45 with some breezy winds, but really not a whole lot happening. We're still looking at that potential for some flurries like we saw today for parts of the northeast and along the west coast, and potentially for the south coast as well. Just a chance of a few flurries through the overnight tonight. Otherwise, not a whole lot happening. They're really going to move in by morning, or at least the potential to move in by morning. But overall, that cold air staying very much in place with some breezy winds for the northeast coast out of the northwest, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. So pretty similar to what we're seeing today. Those winds will die down along, or at least stay light along the west coast. Another chilly night for Lab City, like I mentioned, minus 34 with those winds, just a little breezy, 15 to 20 maybe kilometers per hour, making those wind chills feel closer to the minus 40. So if you are planning on heading out tonight to enjoy this, make sure you do bundle up. And then as we head towards the morning hours, some increasing cloud will move in for the Big Land. More than likely not until the afternoon as you head a little bit further east. And then we're going to see that for the island as well. As the low, or rather the high, moves off, it's going to allow some more cloud cover to move in with some light snow developing for the west and south coast. Could pick up less than 5 centimeters, it looks like at this point. Maybe down around the Port Basque area, you could pick up between 5 to maybe as much as 8 centimeters of snow with this as it continues to track on, but really not a whole lot happening otherwise. Temperatures are going to be pretty similar to today, sitting in the minus single digits, minus 8 for St. John's, minus 9 for Clarenville, Marystown, very similar, sitting at minus 7. Again, have that potential for flurries in there for you. Heading towards central, plenty of sunshine along the coast, though. Going to pick up the potential for another few flurries, sitting around minus 7. And then on the west coast, that's where the lighter snow will be for Stephenville up through Gross Moor, with that potential through the day. Back into those minus double digits. A little bit warmer, though, for St. Anthony, minus 10. And then plenty of sunshine up through Labrador. Again, going to see that cloud cover move in for Lab West and the potential for some flurries. So quiet now, but as we head into Thursday and Friday, there is a pretty big system moving in. I'll have all those details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. An exhausting and expensive trip has ended in disappointment for one St. John's AAA hockey team. Last Wednesday, the Pinnacle Growlers traveled to Halifax for one of the biggest hockey tournaments of the year, but things didn't go according to plan. All of their gear, the equipment, the hockey sticks, all of it were on a different flight to Toronto. The team arrived in Halifax hoping to hit the ice to compete that afternoon, but instead they were benched. And that was just the start of an aggravating week. Here are some of the team members, aged 15 to 17, arriving in St. John's this morning. Now, we spoke with the team's manager as well as one of the team members' parents.
Glad to be home. Finally, it's been, a week of hell, really. We took a bunch of kids, what was supposed to be a positive outlook on the tournament, and we never got our equipment first starting off. I wasn't made aware their equipment wasn't going on the plane. So we landed in Halifax, only to find no equipment there.
And not one hockey bag arrived. Eventually they found out that their bags had been put on a flight leaving St. John's around the same time but headed to Toronto. So the bags were in Toronto.
If I knew our equipment wasn't on the plane on Wednesday morning, I would have hauled the team off the plane and wrote the tournament off.
We know where the bags are, and so we're hoping they're coming at 1. Then 1 comes, they're not on that flight. The next morning, they're going to be on the next flight. The next flight, the next morning, the bags are not on that flight. Another game has to be postponed. They missed the second game. Thankfully, the Ice Jam organizers in Halifax rejigged the schedule. The other teams accommodated us, and the games were set to another time. The boys tried their very, very best. They had to play 3 full-contact games of hockey in 18 hours.
Which is kind of unheard of for a tournament of this nature. I mean, to go up and play that type of tournament and in the amount of time. Our kids were great. We made the best out of a bad situation. We'd done a lot of team bonding, but we had no choice. It was something, and they played their hearts out when we got on the ice, and they played really well. But by the time the third game come, they had nothing left. Basically to really put out what they could have put out.
The saga continues, and they're told that their flight returning back to St. John's is delayed due to crew availability. And so it's delayed and delayed and delayed. And finally, after midnight sometime, the flight is canceled. Then no one at Air Canada was willing to provide clear answers about rebooking, where would they go, what hotel, any of this kind of stuff. The coaches, manager are trying to look after these 15 to 17-year-old boys and get them in a hotel.
So finally they agreed to put us up in a hotel. Now there was the one diamond in the rough, I guess, with all this was a man by the name of Wayne McFarlane with Air Canada who really took us on. At that point, this whole tournament for us, I guess the expenses for our team is about $35,000 for us to travel to a tournament of this nature. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that, you got a team that works so hard to go there, there's scouts involved, teams are getting looked at and to go up and to be put into a position. Nice to get them home and kids are safe and sound. Like I said, we made a positive with regards to a team building, and the group of kids that we got playing hockey are unbelievable.
$35,000. Air Canada declined an interview request but did issue a statement. A spokesperson says adverse weather conditions meant that the plane that left St. John's on Wednesday needed to carry extra fuel, so they had to reduce the baggage load for safety reasons. The airline also says that it regrets any inconvenience that the delay caused. Well, that is Jack, a cat that vanished 2 years ago. Yes, 2 years now. Lapping up some of the fame, we'll have Jack's story coming up on Here and Now.
They're the oldest campers in the park, Max and Sheila Porter, the couple who've been camping for 60 years. The Happy Campers, Sunday at noon and Monday at 7.
Okay, animal lovers, in the case of Jack, the 12-year-old cat, he did not come back the very next day. For more than 2 years, a Kilbride couple has been searching for their beloved pet every day. So imagine their surprise when late last week they came across a post online showing that Jack was alive and well, a little skinny, but was in the care of the City of Mount Pearl's Animal Control. I visited the Ivies and Jack earlier today at their home. So Mary, when did Jack go missing?
Actually, a long time ago, November 26, 2017.
You remember the date?
Yes, very much so.
Why?
Because we started posting right away. Yes, and that is the exact date that he went missing. That early morning, actually.
So what happened?
He just went out. He always sat on the patio for 5 minutes or so, and then we'd always go back and he'd come back in the house, and that was his routine. That's all he wanted to do, check the weather and come right back in. When David went back to get him, he was gone.
And he's an older cat, so you'd had him for a while.
He was 12. Yeah.
So you'd had him for 12 years, and he'd never disappeared?
No. He came in the house every night and slept with me.
What did you think when you realized he disappeared?
I just couldn't believe that he was gone. I called her at work, said, Mary, I said, Jack hasn't come back, and it's not like him to not come back.
Yeah.
And she was at work, because like 5 minutes, in and out, he was there. And maybe another 10 minutes, he'd want to go out again, but he just didn't come back.
Yeah.
So what did you do over we're talking 2 years?
Mm-hmm. Over 2 years.
She was every night on the patio deck calling his name.
Every night, right up until the day he was found.
Every night?
Every night. She was calling his name.
So like last week you were doing this?
Yes.
She has
all around the house.
She has a lost prayer on her phone for lost animals. She said that every night. She didn't give up.
Nope. Never. And of course I posted them. NL Missing Pets, NL Lost Pets, Humane Services, SPCA, everywhere.
So every day for 2 years you're waiting, and then something magical with Mount Pearl happened. So what happened?
Actually, he got posted on NL Missing Pets by Lady Sharon Gardner. And I didn't respond right away because she said he was going to Mount Pearl Animal Shelter.
When she showed you the picture, how did you react?
I said, "Oh, Mom, Mary, not again." But we'll go. We'll look, and because we've been everywhere from the East End to the Gould. We've been in the Goulds 11, 12 o'clock in the night because people say they might have spotted them walking around.
So, right.
And we've been down the East End, down Stavanger Drive, because someone said they might have had them.
So it was an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you realized, hey,
yeah,
this is Jack.
Oh, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing, actually.
Now that you got him back, is he an indoor cat now?
Oh, I don't even think he'll look to go back out to what he's been out
He'll
to.
never go outside no more.
We got our catio built, and so anyway, he'll enjoy the rest of his life that way.
Somebody must have been taking care of him. I mean, I know they say cats have 9 lives. He must have used up a few of them over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I think so. And I want to thank anybody who fed Jack along his route because they gave him another day to survive. So anyway, yeah, but he didn't get fed for a long time because his weight is gone. Right?
Yeah, but he's still here.
He is. Right? So that's the thing. So yeah, right.
Yeah.
So he's on the mend.
All right, 2 years, a long time. Congratulations. It must have been.
Oh, thank you.
It must have been. You must have thought.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't think this was ever going to happen.
Well, I didn't give up.
You didn't give up?
No, and that's the thing out there. Never give up.
Yeah.
Back at home. Now, earlier in the program, you heard about efforts to ensure that you aren't paying twice as much for heat and light when Muskrat Falls is up and running. And shortly after a private meeting with Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland today, Dwight Ball spoke with reporters, and he says he still isn't ready to reveal details on just how the province and Ottawa plan to keep rates manageable.
Working towards the date of the end of January. The Prime Minister is there, the Deputy Prime Minister understands that, Minister Morneau understands that, and Minister O'Regan, who has been relentless in working and very persistent on this particular file for us as well. So we're all working towards the end of January. Understand the PUB report will be out at that time as well. So that's what we're working towards, finding an agreement so people in our province would have an understanding of what electricity rates mitigation would look like.
Is it still your target, 13.5 cents a kilowatt hour?
You know, that's what our plan was put in place. 13.5 cents is still our target. That's what our rate mitigation plan is working towards, and so that's the target that we're still working towards.
Did you talk about rate mitigation at all with the group, the larger group at Freeland, about kind of how?
Yesterday, you mean?
Yeah, yesterday.
Oh, yes. There's not a premier in this province or in this country that's not aware of the electricity rate, problem that we are facing here in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's, I keep using examples of, you think of doubling of electricity rates. We still, in our province, we just need more electricity just simply because of where we live. And so every premier in this country, I will tell you, is acutely aware of, of doubling electricity rates, what it would mean to Newfoundland and Labrador.
Is 200 million still the target for Ottawa? And if so, is there any sort of comment about where that 200 million might get delivered?
I think right now it would be, there's a number of options that we're still working on. As you know, this is a very complicated, very complex financial arrangement that's been put in place. We've had guarantees, that have been extra guarantees that have been put in place. And keep in mind, when the structure was developed, it was for a $6 billion project. This is now changing to $12.7 billion, but it's coming to an end here. This project now is almost finished, but when the impact is not finished. So $6 to $12.7 billion. The impact, it was meant to lower electricity rates in our province, and just doing quite the opposite. It's actually now potentially would double electricity rates. So that's still our target at 13.5 cents. The number of options that we're considering are, mainly around the financial restructuring of that project.
A lot of people are still talking about Harry and Meghan and their surprise move that has shaken Buckingham Palace. Next, we'll have a look at what people in London are saying. Welcome back to Here and Now. A day after Buckingham Palace confirmed that Harry and Meghan will no longer be senior royals, the British people are now digesting that news, and they have differing views about the big announcement. CBC's Renee Filipponi has more from London.
In London, this is really being painted as Harry and Meghan got their way. Some papers pushing this as Megxit, and that Meghan gets what Meghan wants. Now, the Queen was clear in her statement. She didn't want the pair to go, but would support them. And headlines in the papers are calling it a reluctant farewell. After nearly a week of front-page headlines following the announcement, the media and the public continued to debate who's at fault.
I think they needed to have consulted the royal family first. I think they perhaps haven't really thought through the broader implications of what being a member of the royal family means to our society.
Meghan wasn't prepared to fit in with being a royal. If you looked at the way the wedding was, that was not what we would understand as a royal wedding.
Sort of a given, you know. It's too much pressure on them, and what for? He's not going to be the king.
There is still a lot of details to figure out. The statement yesterday was thin and spoke of a transition period, but didn't explain how the couple would become financially independent. Officials in the UK and Canada, where the Sussexes will now split their time, will be involved in these discussions, particularly when it comes to who will pay for security. Prime Minister Boris Johnson was asked to weigh in on the latest royal drama.
I'm a massive fan, certainly of the Queen and of the royal family as a fantastic asset for our country. I'm absolutely confident that they are going to sort this out.
The Queen was clear in her very personal statement. She wants a solution fast and expects final decisions in the coming days. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
We have more information now about the dangers of textured breast implants. CBC News has learned that the number of women diagnosed with a rare type of cancer due to the implants is higher than previously announced. Vicadopia explains why that risk may have been underestimated.
Okay, so my family tree.
It's a troubled family tree rooted in the BRCA2 gene mutation.
Ovarian cancer.
Karen Malkin-Lazarovitz carries the gene. It left her with one of the hardest decisions in her life 7 years ago.
I removed my healthy breasts because of my high risk of breast cancer.
A surgeon rebuilt her breasts using BioCell textured implants, but after Health Canada suspended their sale in May, Malkin-Lazarovitz had hers out.
I didn't remove healthy breasts to not get breast cancer, only to have textured implants put in that are known to cause a rare type of another cancer.
That other cancer is a type of lymphoma called BIA-ALCL, treatable if caught in time. Right now, the risk of developing it is estimated at 1 in 3,500. Last May, Health Canada said 54 breast implant patients were either confirmed or suspected of having the cancer. Now, Health Canada tells us the number is almost double, 106, including 2 women who died. This cosmetic surgeon says the new numbers may be higher due to duplication, yet they're still hard to ignore.
I think the numbers that we're getting from Health Canada are really scary because, not just from Health Canada, but even worldwide, because they're changing so quickly.
The numbers fluctuate because there's no centralized system to track confirmed cases or the thousands of implanted patients. It's not just a Canadian problem.
We could have the very first speaker.
At the first World Conference on BIA-ALCL, experts refer to the cancer as emerging because it may not be so rare.
And I tell them that the risk of developing BIA-ALCL is likely higher with longer age of implants.
This U.S. surgeon checked up on every patient he used textured implants on and found this cancer was 10 times more prevalent than current estimates.
So what's been the experience of the 3,546 patients? 10 now have BIA-ALCL.
Terry McGregor was the only Canadian patient at the conference. She was diagnosed with BIA-ALCL 5 years ago and warns against downplaying the risk.
We have women in Canada presenting symptoms to their physician, and the physician is telling them that they don't have cancer and they should stop worrying and that they should get on with their lives because of the word rare.
Health Canada does not recommend removing textured implants preemptively because that also has risks, and there's still no guarantee doing so will prevent the onset of this cancer. Vicadopia, CBC News, Toronto.
In international news, Iran says people have been arrested in connection with the shooting down of the Ukrainian passenger plane, but has declined to say how many are being held. 176 people died on the plane, including 57 Canadians. President Hassan Rouhani says Iran will punish those responsible. He described it as not an ordinary case and that the world will be watching. Today's speech is the latest in a series of apologies from a government that rarely acknowledges any wrongdoing. Iran admitted that its missiles brought down the passenger jet by mistake after denying it for days. In Tehran, people have been laying flowers and lighting candles at memorials for the victims, most of whom were Iranians as well as Canadians of Iranian descent. There have been angry protests in parts of the country over the tragedy and the government's earlier attempts to conceal what happened.
It's not like in prison everyone's sitting around talking about how they want to be rehabilitated. It's more a talk of like what crimes they're going to do when they get out. Unless you want actual change yourself, it doesn't make a difference.
Newfoundland and Labrador is saying goodbye to John Crosbie. On Thursday, you can watch the funeral for John Crosbie on CBC TV, News Network, YouTube, and Facebook. The funeral service will also be broadcast live on CBC Radio. Special coverage with me, Anthony Germain, and CBC News Network host Heather Hiscox, as well as reporter Peter Cowan. That special coverage starts at 1:30 Newfoundland time, 1 in Labrador. The funeral for John Crosbie, Thursday, live on CBC.
The weather update is brought to you by Beltone, your partner in better hearing.
And with respect to the funeral, I see that Heather Hiscox has landed in St. John's. Some smart Alex saying, why didn't Anthony pick her up? Well, busy. But it's a real pleasure to work with Heather once again and remembering this fascinating political life. Have you heard the expression, I finds me back?
No.
No?
Not yet.
Okay, because it's this amazing Newfoundland way. I met these people who have no idea what people mean when they say, I finds me back. It's a Newfoundland way of saying that something hurts, right? That they feel the pain and all that.
Gotcha.
And you can imagine why I'm introducing you to this Newfoundland lingo.
Certainly can.
Because I know it's coming.
It's coming.
And I can find it already.
Your back
Do we know
might
for
hurt.
sure yet? Is it still a couple days to...
Yeah, we still have a couple of days to nail down this forecast, but
Yeah.
it is looking more and more like we're going to see lots of shoveling. Get your shoveling on, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's have it.
Let's take a look at Environment Canada has already issued a special weather statement, and again, that's ahead of that system all the way through to Grand Falls, Windsor. and the Bay of Exploits at the moment. At least that's what we're looking at right now. Again, that track of that system still a little bit up in the air, but here's where we'll be sitting. We'll get right into the forecast temperature-wise. So still hanging on to that chilly air up through Lab City, -23 with that potential for some flurries. And overall, those temperatures are going to climb. So we're going to see later to that high pressure system, which is going to take some of that colder air with it, or at least allow some warmer air to move in, should I say, sitting in between -2 to -4 for most of us, and then sitting around -13 for the Straits. Now let's take a look at this system. So this is Thursday. We'll see some flurry activity along the west coast, which I just showed you there. And then it starts to move in late day Thursday, really ramping up as we head into Friday. So here's where we'll be sitting. Again, the winds with this system will be pretty significant for the most part, as this system's pretty strong. That's going to move off, and so really, as far as that snowfall goes, it's going to fall in a pretty short amount of time. This is my first stab at the forecast. This will more than likely change, and again, because of that track. So west coast, not too much snow, anywhere from 5 to 15 centimeters. As you head further east, that's where we get into the bulk of that snow. I know that 30 to 60 centimeters is what I have here on the graphic, but the reason for that is because any change in that track, not really confident in exactly where that heaviest snow will fall, but this is a good indication of what we're looking at right now. Areas along the eastern Avalon could see that change over to either some drizzle or some rain, which will eat in to some of these amounts, but it is looking like it will be a significant storm. Anywhere from 30 to 40 centimeters is a good bet, but again, could pick up as much as 60 centimeters. The other thing that we're watching with this storm is the winds. Take a look at this. As we head into Friday morning, they ramp up, a little bit of a break in that, and then back up to about 100 kilometers per hour, even in excess of 100 kilometers per hour by the time Friday evening rolls around. That's when it looks like we'll see the strongest winds, maybe gusts near 120, 130 kilometers per hour. So we certainly need to keep an eye on this forecast over the coming days, but that's a good indication of what we're going to see to start. You can see the temperatures are going to jump up as well, -2, and then back down into the minus single digits. If we see a change over to drizzle, those temperatures will more than likely be hovering around the 0 degree mark. Not a significant jump in those temperatures. For central Newfoundland, we're looking at rain or rather snow and wind again for Friday, and then calming down as we head into Saturday and Sunday, but those cooler temperatures are going to return as well. And then for western Newfoundland, we're looking at just some flurries for Friday. The winds will be strong, not as strong though. And then by Sunday, we'll see that sun peak back out, sitting around -7 degrees. For eastern Labrador, nothing but sunshine at the moment. We can thank a ridge of high pressure for that. Those temperatures are going to be cool, so nice and quiet up there. Some flurry activity through Thursday, but overall, your temperature will be hovering in the -20 degree range for western Labrador. So see what the forecast happens, Anthony.
All right, thanks, Ashley. Down under now, hazardous air quality in Melbourne from bushfire smoke is having an effect on the Australian Open tennis tournament. A 28-year-old Slovenian player suffered breathing difficulties that led to her withdrawal from a qualifying match. Tournament organizers were immediately targeted. You can see her there in distress. They were targeted by critics who say the matches should have been called off given the pollution levels, and she wasn't the only one. An Australian player with respiratory distress had to call a medical timeout in the match. The smoke has prompted advisories from officials in Victoria State for people to remain indoors, shut their windows as well. It was a long way to Australia from Nova Scotia, but students there were all set to try to help the animals that are affected by all of these wildfires, except what could they do, really? They're an ocean away, and they're just 11 years of age. Well, Colleen Jones decided to go find out.
Isaiah Allen Shepherd is putting his heart into his art. He's drawing a koala bear running from the Australia wildfires.
My drawing is this koala who got all burnt up, and right now he's just trying to rest. And some of his teeth got knocked out because he was like running for his life and he bumped into a tree.
All of the students are busy drawing more koalas to sell, to raise money for the Australia Zoo Wildlife Hospital. It all began with their 2 grade 5 and 6 teachers who look for the latest trend in teaching, service learning opportunities. In other words, how can you help others?
It's a good lesson to learn to teach the students about helping their communities and helping those in need, and just making a better community for themselves to live in and to be in. and it also brings a sense of pride to them to be a part of a community that provides support and help to others.
Teacher Sarah Parker was excited to come to class this morning to tell her students that since the project began late last week, they've sold $400 worth of their art.
And I'm getting messages from people, HRM, Nova Scotia, Canada, beyond, interested in purchasing their work. And the students couldn't believe how far we reached with this project, and they're incredibly proud of themselves, and I'm super proud of them.
The school's bulletin board showing the koala art is almost all sold out. Made with koala love, they say, and this drawing actually started a bidding war. So the students keep drawing, moved after watching stories on the horror of what's happening in the wildfires and the impact to both humans and wildlife. That they can do something to help? Why wouldn't you, says Sarah Boudreau-Margats.
Making simple art can help halfway across the world.
Still kind of phones blowing up now a little bit. Some people wanting to buy 7 koalas at a time. And
Ryan Wood is one of the people who works with the students. He's helping to get the word out about the art project.
little gestures and small acts can go a long way, right? So I think it's big for them. It is.
And these students are learning that those little gestures make a difference. The teachers hope this is one lesson they remember from grade school and carry with them all their lives. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Dartmouth.
Well, I want to know where you're to.
Why does that look familiar?
It should.
Yeah.
It's not far from here.
It's Torbay?
Yeah, you're right.
Woohoo!
All right, well, I'll tell you who took this photo and sent it in when we come back.
Okay, got some cute video to show you before we sign off. Cute being relative. Hard to resist a succulent meal. This is an enterprising gray squirrel in New Brunswick. Check this out. There he goes.
That guy scaled up the side of the house in Fredericton. He made his way to the bird feeder on the window ledge.
And the birds are presently filing papers in court. Now, he wasn't able to hang on and enjoy his lunch at the same time. So he stuffed his whole body in there, like you would. Stayed there for a few hours, feasting on those seeds, and no doubts that ruffled a few feathers among the regular diners. What are the birds going to do? There's no room in there now.
Nope.
Look at that.
That's adorable, though.
Stuffed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there's a beautiful shot there. You guessed it. It was Torbay. Curtis Butt sent us that wonderful photo. It is lovely to see.
Was
the
that
sun,
taken
isn't
today?
It was taken today.
Yep. You can tell by the sunshine.
Yep. Blue
Oh, look, there's
skies.
Ashley down there with her shades on, slipping on the ice.
Yep. Thank you so much for sending that in. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Good night.